The Washington Nationals go for the sweep against the Miami Marlins and get the job done. And now we got to talk about the Nationals, not star, but a superstar shortstop with CJ Abrams.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter over at Ryan Clary11 and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals. And of course, while you're at it, make sure to look up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts, including over on YouTube, and hit that subscriber button, please. Later on in the show, the Nationals, they get ready to take on the defending World Series champion, the Texas Rangers. And also, I got a quick little side note to that I'll share to you in that third segment. You'll kind of want to hear that because I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit petty, but I think Nationals fans will ultimately hear that sentiment, and you may agree with it, you may disagree with it. I'll discuss that in the third segment of today's show. And also in the second segment, this Nationals team has kind of taken a turn. It has taken a pretty big turn compared from last year's. Nationals are at 500 right now, which is unbelievable to think about after having a pretty poor year last year and the year before being the worst team in all of Major League Baseball. So we'll discuss that. What has been the catapult for this turnaround? I've got some ideas. I think it has to do with this front office, but ultimately we'll answer that in the second segment of the show. But now let's get started with it because the Nationals, they got the sweep against the Miami Marlins. But before that, today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play Store. So let's get into it, as again, the Nationals, they swept the Miami Marlins 4 games down in Miami. And again, this is a little bit surprising considering back in 2022, the Nationals only won 4 games in total against those Miami Marlins. And in last year in 2023, they only won 2 games. They already doubled their win total in the first series playing against the Miami Marlins. And of course, this kind of came as a surprise because the Nationals were down, 7-0 in Sunday's contest. Yesterday was not really all that close. Saturday wasn't all too close. And Friday was a pretty damn good game. But still, the Nationals, they got the 4-game sweep. And now you have to ask yourself, how good is this Nationals team? Well, again, I'm always going to say that at this point, this team, not necessarily a contender, even though you're only really a game and a half, 2 games out of a wild card spot. But still, you all kind of know it's still April. It's April 30th. Tomorrow's going to be May, but it feels pretty damn good to say that you are a 500 baseball team to begin the month of May. Maybe you're above 500, maybe you're a game below it, but still, to say that. And also, this is what I saw in yesterday's game as well, and also not just from the game, but saw it over on Twitter. Davey Martinez has never finished in April, the first month of the season, with a winning record. That includes 2018, that includes 2019, and of course 2020 was the COVID year, but you all understand the point. This is not something that has happened under Davey Martinez, and this is not something that has happened since 2017, since the Nationals have finished above 500 in the month of April. Are we going to be an above 500 team? AKA, are we going to be a postseason team? Let me again reiterate, I don't believe so at this point. You've gotten some really good opponents. You've beaten the Dodgers a handful of times. You got swept by them also. You beat the Astros. You beat up on the Marlins. But still, you've got some tough opponents coming in tonight. That is against the Texas Rangers. But one of the big proponents of this Nationals team so far, and the main reason, in my opinion, outside of really good starting pitching at some points, and also just kind of overall better team play, you could say, it's CJ Abrams. What CJ Abrams has done so far in the 2024 season is not something that you would really expect from any 23-year-old. And again, let me reiterate, this is someone who is 23 years old, batting at the top of your lineup, being your star shortstop. Hell, he is not a star shortstop. He is a superstar shortstop at this moment in time. I wanted to pull up some numbers from Baseball Savant, from CJ Abrams, because again, if you remember last season, some of his deep metrics were pretty good, but although not too great. This year, though, and the turnaround that he has had at the plate specifically, that is where he makes a massive difference. Number one, something that really kind of sticks out to me. He is in the 62nd percentile as far as base on balls percentage goes across Major League Baseball. That is a huge jump from last season. And again, he is actually someone who is now taking pitches at a pretty relatively good rate. And again, it's not even just that. You look at his expected batting average, 97th percentile. His expected slugging in the 95th percentile. His barrel percentage is up in the 68th percentile. His deep metrics on CJ Abrams so far this season, and again, at the age of 23 years old, this is not really something that we expected. We saw the jump last year, but if you were expecting CJ Abrams to again have an above 1,000 OPS on this season, batting nearly over 300 on this season up to this point, you probably would have won the lottery, because I was not expecting a jump like this. Now, are these going to be his numbers to end this season? Probably not, but still. Up to this point, you can kind of get a glimpse of what we will be seeing in the future with CJ Abrams. This guy is going to be a superstar, if he's not one already. In my opinion, CJ Abrams, you're now talking about that Juan Soto trade, because that's what he's always going to go back to. I saw a Padres fan tweet at me this the other day. They are so jealous of the fact that CJ Abrams is developing this way. And also, for guys like down in the minors, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, hell, even Robert Hassell, another big part of that Juan Soto trade. Guys like that, you have them in your system. You can now actually kind of have a little bit of hope that these guys will develop. CJ Abrams was mostly developed by the San Diego Padres staff, but still, he's taken these big, massive jumps under the Nationals leadership. And I think we'll get into that a little bit later on as to why this team has kind of taken these turns and everything like that. But still, with what Abrams has done this season, it kind of gives you a little bit of a glimpse of hope for what could be for a James Wood, your Dylan Cruz, and hell, your Robert Hassel's even, maybe even Elijah Green that turns it around, Dalen Lyle, all those big prospects, Brady House, all of them. It makes you kind of think and wonder and kind of dream a little bit about what this team could do. And also, from what CJ Abrams has done this year, one of the more impressive things that he has done, his numbers against left-handed pitching, something that he sort of struggled with against last year. He is batting .406 against left-handed pitching this year. He has 13 hits out of his 32 at-bats against them. He has a .441 on-base percentage. And his slugging, you may ask, it's an .875 against left-handed pitching. This is not normal. This is not something that you go into a season expecting, hell, even like a Pete Alonso type, someone who may kill left-handed pitching. This is not what you expect from him. This is a CJ Abrams. This is a whole different animal at this point. What he has done so far to begin 2024 is the best possible outcome that any Nationals fan could have asked for in the year of 2024. Maybe you sprinkle in a James Wood breakout as well. He's 21 years old. You're not going to rush him up at this point. But what CJ Abrams has done in really year 3 up in the big leagues, year 2 as a full-time major leaguer, where there's no questions asked about whether he should be in the bigs or whether he should be in the minors. This is what the Nationals have needed and have asked for and have begged for over time. This is why you make that Juan Soto trade. We come back to that every single time because, again, this was not supposed to be the main piece. And you're starting to see him be a superstar shortstop. You already have Mackenzie Gore, who's looking like an ace, who's, by the way, pitching in tonight's game that we'll preview later on in the show. You already have James Wood, who's a top 10 prospect in all of baseball, who's killing the baseball, who's looking like he's going to hit 40-plus home runs once he reaches the major leagues. You already have all that. You potentially have Yarlene Susana, who's going to be your closer of the future, maybe. Who knows at this point? There's still a lot of time to develop for Susana, but still, this whole breakout season with CJ Abrams, it's a dream come true if you're a Nationals fan. And again, I saw this from Ryan Spader, the ace of Spader, over on Twitter. Check him out again. That is Ryan Spader. CJ Abrams, and the numbers that he is on pace for in the 2024 campaign, he is on pace for 45 home runs, 110 RBIs, 39 stolen bases, 194 hits, 26 triples, and 32 doubles. Again, 45 home runs. That is what he is on pace on throughout the first month of the season. It's incredible what this guy is doing. It's incredible the amount of just jumps that he has taken, the leaps and the confidence out there, and the laser shot home runs that you see nearly on a nightly basis, it feels like at this point. This is now someone where pitching staffs, they're going up to their pitching coach and saying, how do I get this guy out? And you may ask what they say. You can't. You just can't at this point. The way that he has been hitting, the way he has taken command at the plate, the way he has taken command of his strike zone. The one thing, because I could kind of take that back a little bit, the one thing you can kind of take about CJ Abrams on this season, his chase percentage is in the 4th percentile. Boo-hoo. He's still batting over 300. He's still killing the baseball. He still has one of the higher slugging numbers in the entire Major League Baseball. He's still in the top 10 of home runs in Major League Baseball. He is still, again, a top 5 shortstop in the game of baseball. Yes, I said it. You may be asking, why do you say that? I say check the numbers. They back themselves up. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, you can check us out over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals. And again, that is Locked On Nationals for all your daily Nationals content. Make sure to check us out over on YouTube. And now let me tell you guys about some of the turnaround here. What has caused this dramatic turnaround in the year of 2024? I think there are a couple different reasons. I think it has to do with, obviously, CJ Abrams and the stuff that he has done, but also some other sneaky stuff that I think get overlooked by this organization. So I'll explain that and everything that goes on with it and why I think these things. But before that, let me tell you guys about some of our very good friends. And of course, we got to start with our good friends over at FanDuel. And guys, when I talk about FanDuel, you need to know that it is playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is back in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose, but on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. Like tonight, I'm actually kind of feeling it just a little bit. CJ Abrams has been struggling immensely so far in 2024. I think he hits a home run tonight. You may ask, Ryan, why does he do that? I don't know, but I just have that gut feeling. And if you have that gut feeling, you can use our friends over at FanDuel and bet whenever you would like to. And of course, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, that is America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. So now let's get into it. As the Nationals, what has caused this Nats turnaround? What has kind of gone into the year of 2024? What has happened? What is in the water over at Half Street, South Capitol Street, whatever the heck that Nationals Park is based out of? I think that something has to do with a few different things. Number one, if you look across this Nationals lineup right now and the way that this roster is constructed, how many first-round picks are there that have really kind of broken out? How many big-time prospects have really broken out within this team? CJ Abrams, again, top 10 prospect in baseball at one point. Mackenzie Gore, also a top 10 prospect in baseball at one point. Other than that, there really aren't all too much. You have Josiah Gray, who is on the shelf and hasn't really pitched up to his standards in this season. You have Keibert Ruiz, another former top prospect who has not really pitched up to his standards. But now let's take a look at the cross diamond here. You have someone like Nick Senzel, who's been killing the baseball so far this season in 2024 in limited action. You have Luis Garcia over at second base, who was sort of a top-ish prospect within the Nationals organization, but that was kind of because we don't really have all too much to look forward to, as back in 2020, the Nationals farm system wasn't all too great. Then you look in the outfield. You have Lane Thomas. So when you traded John Lester, and at that point, the Cardinals just said, sure, we'll give you Lane Thomas. Why not? You get him back, and of course, he's on the IL now, but still, he makes a difference when he's in the lineup. In center field right now, Jacob Young, a 7th-round pick at the University of Florida. So when he was kind of just come up out of nowhere, he's making an impact. In left field, you have kind of the rotating cast of Jesse Winker / Eddie Rosario / name that veteran, and eventually it'll be Stone Garrett as well. All of these teams and all of these guys, they're not former top prospects. This is not the 2012 Washington Nationals team. This is not the 2017 Washington Nationals team. This ain't the 2019 Washington Nationals team. This is a team consisted of kind of misfit toys up at this point. And you may ask, why does that even make sense? How do they even get this job done? Well, if you look around, again, the starting staff as well. Mackenzie Gore, we already nailed him. He's a top prospect, someone that you're going to have to pay a lot of money to down the road. Jake Irvin, he's kind of someone who has come out of nowhere. Not a top pick, not a top prospect, had Tommy John. It's still making an impact. Trevor Williams, up to this point, he has been making an impact, and I got to give credit where credit is due. He has been pretty damn good so far to start 2024. This Nationals front office, I think, has made the big difference in the year of 2024. Mike Rizzo is still in place. And again, I've been harsh on Mike Rizzo. A lot of fans have been harsh on Mike Rizzo. You went a lot of different years without really nailing your first-round picks. But what makes good GMs, not just good GMs, and what makes them great GMs is nailing the others. Getting your 7th-round pick, Jacob Young, to come in and make an immediate impact, as we saw with last year, playing solid defense in center field, getting on base, and just being a menace on the base path. That is what he's doing this year, but doing it at a better rate. Jacob Young is kind of one of those guys where every organization has to have a Jacob Young. You have to have a guy who comes in out of the middle rounds of the draft, a college bat who may just need a little bit of seasoning down in the minor leagues, get thrown up in the majors, and see what this kid can do. He's just kind of like the vision of what this Nationals organization could be. He's kind of the vision of what you want from a winning organization. Guys who come out of nowhere. Jake Irvin is another example of that. Having him pitch as well as he has so far this season, and again, the start before yesterday was pretty damn bad against the Dodgers, but that's going to happen when you run up against Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and that entire loaded Dodgers staff. But now with this said, you can actually look at this team and not just forget about the bad days and the bad days of drafting and maybe whiffing on an Eric Fetty, who, by the way, is looking really damn good right now, which is a different conversation for a different day. But guys like Jackson Rutledge, who haven't really panned up to the point that you thought he could in 2024. Cade Cavalli, I'm not calling it quits with him yet. I think Cade Cavalli could still be a very good arm, but still, it's a little bit disappointing considering he's coming off Tommy John and everyone's kind of closing their ears and thinking that he could be that guy again. But still, you have these pieces now that are in place. And it's not just first-round picks. These aren't guys that you're going out spending a ton of money for. You are nailing guys like Jesse Winker. Some people who thought that he probably wouldn't really be all too helpful in this Nationals team. Well, in this year, he's been one of the Nats' unsung heroes. Luis Garcia, you stuck with him. He's been pretty damn good to start this season. You give Trey Lipscomb a chance. He has been pretty damn good defensively and as well as offensively as of late. So you have these things that are going for you now. It's now just a matter of what could happen next. Now, what are you going to do with James Wood? What are you going to do with Dylan Cruz? How are you going to handle the development of this year's first-round pick? How are you going to handle the development of Brady House? How do you tiptoe that timeline to get them up at the perfect time in order to maximize their value and make this team a better overall baseball team? That is the next step. And the Nationals, they have already started to fill out these puzzle pieces with guys who you aren't spending big money on. These are guys that are homegrown talent, guys that you have plucked off other major league rosters like Stone Garrett's in the past, who last year had an OPS over at 800. It was looking really good until he broke his leg over at Yankee Stadium. That's what great organizations do. That's what it looks like. And again, this Nationals team, it's starting to turn around. You can start to see this team in the front office have a little bit more pull within the front office, have kind of a little bit more swagger. They're getting their swagger back a little bit. That's kind of one of my main bullet points I wanted to get to. This organization, over the years, again, the lack of developing prospects has been my main issue. But this year, you're seeing it. You're starting to see guys like Abrams develop, Jacob Young, your stars, and all the other guys in between. They are starting to fill out and find their roles, and you start to see the vision clearly of this organization with no fog in the way. I think that has been the main difference in 2024, and that is why you can see a much more clear, more positive picture of this team, and that is why this Nationals organization seems to be turning it around. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Next, the Nationals have their biggest test of 2024 as the Nats. They're sitting at 500, but now you're going up against the World Series champs. What are you going to do? You're in their ballpark, Globe Life Park. What will this organization do? We'll discuss that. And of course, preview the first 3 games of the series and the only 3 games after we tell you guys about our friends over at DoorDash. And guys, do you want to make mom smile? Start Mother's Day off with flowers or surprise her with gifts from the brands she loves delivered this very same day with DoorDash. You can get gifts as thoughtful as she is with DoorDash. Select from hundreds of expertly crafted bouquets, the best of tech, self-care essentials, and more delivered right to her door. Does mom have a sweet tooth? Or is she a tech enthusiast, a beauty connoisseur, or is she outdoorsy? No matter what she's into, you can make her smile with a fruit or flyer, bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout wear, and more. And of course, maybe you just want to send her a Mother's Day brunch from Name That Local establishment. You can do that as well over with our friends over at DoorDash. I know I'll probably do that with my mom. She loves DoorDash, so we're going to get her something nice with our friends at DoorDash. So get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place, and of course, get 50% off your next order up to $15, and you spend $15 plus on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB. Order using DoorDash today. Terms do apply. Now let's get into it as we preview this Nationals-Rangers series. And of course, in Game 1 tonight, you got yourself a little bit of a treat. It is veteran right-handed pitcher Jon Gray against Mackenzie Gore. Game 2, you have Trevor Williams against left-handed pitcher Andrew Heaney. Again, another veteran there. And then in Game 3, you have the ace of the staff, Mitchell Parker against Nathan Eovaldi. That's kind of a joke with Mitchell Parker there, but still, the guy's been damn good. So the Texas Rangers, they're not going to be thrilled to face him, but we'll preview that one a little bit later on. Jon Gray against Mackenzie Gore. This is kind of the way you've wanted this to fold out, by the way. This is kind of the way that the Nationals, if you're looking to maybe win 7 straight games, this is the pitching matchups that you probably want at this moment. Maybe you would say Jake Irvin. I love Jake Irvin. I'm part of the Jake Irvin fan club. I think he's going to be very good for this organization moving forward. But the way that Trevor Williams has pitched, the way that Mackenzie Gore has pitched, and also the way that Mitchell Parker has pitched, these are 3 guys that I feel pretty damn good about. And I think against the Texas Rangers, again, that is going to be a little bit under a national spotlight considering they're the World Series champions. This feels pretty damn good. I'm not saying the Nationals are going to go into Texas and take 2 of 3, but I think there's a decent chance. You have the pitching matchups at this point. You've been familiar with guys like Nathan Eovaldi. You are not that familiar with Jon Gray and not really all too familiar with Andrew Heaney, but still, I like these matchups a lot under this Nationals team. And the way that we have been hitting the baseball, the way that they have been scrappy yet again, I think this team has a pretty damn good shot at going into Texas and at least taking 2 of 3. Now, again, I said I was going to share a little nugget about me, kind of get to know me a little bit here. I'm a petty guy. I've shared that in the past. I'm not a Bryce Harper fan. Not a Bryce Harper fan. He went to the Phillies. Sorry, not sorry. I'm not a fan of many different teams. The Chicago Cubs, you may ask why. It's because they beat the Washington Nationals. I was not rooting for the Cubs in 2016. Or looking back on it, I wasn't. Whatever. I'm not a fan of the Dodgers. They beat the Nats in the year 2016. I'm not a fan of the Cardinals. You may ask why. They beat the Nats in 2012. I'm not a fan of the Giants. They beat the Nats in 2014. The Texas Rangers, Back when they were the Washington Senators. They left Washington. I may be alone in this. I could be a lone wolf here, howling under the moon. That's fine with me. I'm not a Texas Rangers guy. They left DC. I represent the older fans out there. I know I'm young. I'm 24 years old. I got a lot of life in front of me. I got a lot of things to dislike, and this is probably a pretty stupid one, admittedly. But I don't like the Rangers. They left DC. I'm a Washington fan. I root for the city. This is my home. So when they left Washington, I wasn't around, and I understand that. But they left a lot of Washington fans as well. Every time we play the Texas Rangers, I am a petty man. I want to win. I don't care about tanking. I don't care about it. I want to win. Going up against a team that has left here before, left us in the dust, said, you're not a baseball town. We don't need you. Fine. Whatever you say. I want to beat the Texas Rangers, and I'm petty. You may say, Ryan, that's a pretty stupid thing to think. You're right. Sorry, but not sorry. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, check us out over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals and hit that subscriber button as well. And of course, enjoy this series tonight. Again, it is Mackenzie Gore against the Nats. Mackenzie Gore against John Gray. And of course, I'll catch you on the flip side. Have a good one. Enjoy the game.